I appreciate everybody taking the time to come out tonight and attend this all candidates meeting. This is an important evening for us. We have a big election coming up, and we appreciate that you took time out of your busy schedule to be here. I would like to introduce the candidates, and so we randomly picked a number and ended up right at the end of the table. So I'm just going to let Rick start with this.
I'm Rick Lumac. I'm the NDP candidate in Port Moody-Coquitlam.
Don Barthel, Green Party in Port Moody-Coquitlam.
Selena Robinson, the BC NDP candidate for Coquitlam-Maillardville.
I'm Nicholas Sperling. I'm the Green Party candidate for Coquitlam-Maillardville.
I'm Jody Wickens. I'm the BC NDP candidate for Coquitlam-Burke Mountain.
My name is Ian Sear, Green Party candidate for Coquitlam-Burke Mountain.
Mike Farmer, the NDP candidate for Port Moody-Coquitlam.
And I'm Jason Hanley. I'm the Liberal candidate. I'm sorry.
Thank you, folks. Just to let everybody know, all the candidates of all the parties were invited this evening, and so some of the other folks that were unable to attend send their regrets. I'd like to just take a minute and speak about the organizers of this event and thank them for all the work that they've done to make tonight happen. The event is hosted by the following organizations: the Coquitlam River Watershed Roundtable, a collaborative group comprising community members and representatives from diverse sectors in the Coquitlam River watershed, working to find a balance amongst the numerous pressures, demands, and uses of our natural resources while promoting and supporting the conservation of a sustainable and healthy watershed. The Roundtable is a leading group in British Columbia, advancing local water governance and recognizing that aspects of both environmental and human health are connected to the preservation of ecosystem services in urban regions. We also have the Watershed Watch Salmon Society, who have been advocating for BC's wild salmon and the waters they swim in since 1998. They do this by pushing for effective fisheries management and implementation of the wild salmon policy, working to halt expansion of open net salmon farming and protecting salmon habitat and ecological flows. Since 1996, the Rivershed Society of BC has been helping people to be effective change makers in their riversheds through our education programs, community initiatives, and by building stewardship capacity in the Fraser River Basin. Force of Nature is a local environmental group working to move the Lower Mainland away from fossil fuels towards renewable energy options. While their main focus has been stopping the Kinder Morgan pipeline, other ongoing campaigns include opposing the Site C Dam and organizing in a number of municipalities to make solar power more accessible to local residents. The Canadian Freshwater Alliance is a project on the Tides Canada Shared Platform, a national initiative that builds, connects, and supports freshwater constituencies across Canada. They work with environmental organizations, community groups, government and businesses to strengthen citizen engagement and participation in the protection of our lakes and rivers. The Alliance recently launched the Our Water BC campaign, calling on British Columbians to vote for water in this election. Those who pledge will be provided with an election guide outlining where all the parties stand on water policies in BC. The Sierra Club BC works to defend BC's wild places and species within the urgent context of climate change. They advocate for a rapid shift away from fossil fuels to a low-carbon, equitable economy. They are fighting to stop the Site C Dam and protect the Peace River Valley, and they are calling on governments to invest in local, non-destructive sources of electricity. The Fraser Riverkeeper is a registered Canadian charity that uses law, research, citizen engagement, and digital media to protect a swimmable, drinkable, fishable future. So thank you to all those groups who hosted this evening. Just a quick note, if you need the washroom, you have to head down the hallway and across the lobby area. There are washrooms directly that way. And there will be some questions. If you had the opportunity, we will take questions from the crowd. If you dropped your questions off earlier, there's volunteers who are working to consolidate those so that we can get them to the candidates towards the end. And if you're on social media, there's a hashtag for this evening. It's the number sign, obviously, hashtag vote with the number 4, BC Water. So hopefully there's some tweets and Facebook posts going out tonight that would be appreciated by the people who couldn't make it. I just have a quick water story before we get our First Nations welcome. I was lucky enough to be born in the beautiful foothills of southern Alberta. I grew up in the Sheep River Valley, and in the morning my mom would kick us out the door to go play all day till it was dinner time. We were the epitome of free-range kids. We learned to respect the water because we had this beautiful Sheep River flowing through the valley. We would skate on it in the winter and we would swim on it in the summer. It was our recreation and it was a wonderful place to grow up around. We learned to respect the water and the river. It was fun, but it also posed potential dangers. So you had to be respectful of it. And I think that's something I hope that we can be more as we go down the road, more respectful of it as a resource. I gained a deep appreciation for our water resources then, and I appreciate wildlife and wild species now from that experience. So I'm very grateful that we have the opportunity to discuss the very important topic that is water. Now I would like to introduce Councillor Fred Hulbert from the Coquitlam First Nations to give us our First Nations welcome. Fred?
Thank you for attending tonight. As was mentioned, my name is Councillor Fred Hulbert of the Coquitlam First Nation. I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight in the unceded territory of the Coquitlam First Nation people. Land which has been held within our trust as stewards for generations upon generations. I'd like to take this opportunity to gather the thoughts of my ancestors in saying that we, as a strong nation, have always taken great value our waterways and those that swim in it, those that fly over it. The ones of the land of which have given us great resource was trusted to us by the great Creator that we look after these things and that we become their guardians. It does give me great honor to know that today we have the strength and the ability and the knowledge to pass this down to our next generations, of which we hope will take great pride and honor in knowing that we still have this very reluctant resource within our means today for survival. It gives me great pride and honor to honor those, our ancestors, of which have given us these gifts. I'd like to take this opportunity to ask you to stand, please, so that I can give a prayer in honor of my ancestors and those which have passed. Thank you, great Creator. I humble you before myself, before yourself, I, Pokwa, of the Coquitlam First Nation. I ask that you take in great belief of what it is that we strive to do here within these next generations to help protect our waterways, of which have helped us and provided with us for all these generations. I ask you that we see the means in those of which can help us keep everything that is so sacred to all of us in protection and growth for the nation, or the generations that are to come. I thank you in all of this, and I ask you to protect all of us that are trying to do the best thing so that we can keep our world safe. Ocean, thank you in all my relations. Thank you.
So I am going to give you a bit of a sense on how this evening will go in a few minutes, but first we are going to hear from Melissa Dick from the Coquitlam River Watershed Roundtable and Charlie Kaproff from the Water Literacy Coordinator with the Fraser River Keeper.
Thank you, Laura. My name is Charlie, and I'm Fraser River Keeper's Energetic Water Literacy Coordinator.
My name is Melissa Dick. I'm the coordinator with the Coquitlam River Watershed Roundtable. So we're going to just keep this really brief, but just say a few words about what we're going to be talking about tonight. I'm going to do a little exercise just to bring everybody together. And so we're going to ask you a question. If the answer is yes, if you could please stand up or raise your hand if you prefer.
Number 1, who has visited the source of your drinking water, the Coquitlam Lake Reservoir? Hey, look at all you people.
Okay, who has seen a salmon in a river, stream, lake, or hatchery in the Tri-Cities area?
Who lives, works, or plays in the Tri-Cities area?
Who loves water?
Hey!
Okay, everyone can take a seat. So that's just to show that we're all here standing for water. We care about water, whether it's here in the Tri-Cities, whether it's in our province, or across the country in Canada, or across the world. It's a fact that wherever you are, you're in a watershed. So here at Douglas College, we're in fact in the Hoy Scott watershed. This map shows where our 4 electoral ridings are, the provincial ridings, and shows how the different watersheds and sub-watersheds interact with those boundaries. Wherever you may live, work, or play, you're interacting with elements of the watershed, and we depend on the ecosystem services and the natural resources that are found in these watersheds, and it's up to us as residents and as political leaders to protect those resources and to conserve them.
And so while it's important for us to all protect water, we need leaders that will stand for swimmable, drinkable, fishable waterways. And so this election, I'm voting for water, and I hope you guys are too.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Now I'm going to give everyone a bit of a sense on how this evening will go. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to introduce themselves and answer each question. We'll start at the end of the table and move down to the left. We will have a volunteer sitting at the front with a timer, and they will be holding up a card for 1 minute, 30 seconds, and stop. Thank you, Lena. Each candidate will have the opportunity to rebuttal the response of a fellow candidate twice throughout the evening. Each candidate has a yellow card. If the candidate holds up their yellow card, they will have 30 seconds to rebuttal once the candidate speaking has finished their response. At the end of the event, each candidate will have 1 minute to make a closing statement as to why people should vote for them. If attendees would like to ask a question, there's pieces of paper on the table. You can write your questions down and put them at the entrance of the room where there's a basket for each riding. Attendees can write your questions on the paper, put it in the riding basket, and volunteers will collect and consolidate those questions. If some questions are similar, they will, of course, not double them up, but if you don't get your question worded exactly the way you wrote it down, don't be offended. They're trying their best to consolidate them, so there's not as many. This ensures we can get to as many questions as possible. If we do not get through all the questions, the organizers will provide the candidates with a list of all the questions asked. Each candidate will have the opportunity to rebut the response twice throughout the evening. I believe I already said that. Now we are going to do the candidate intros, if you don't mind starting.
All right, here?
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you everybody for coming out tonight. I guess I got my start in politics, ironically, when I was a kid. When I was going weekend after weekend with my dad on the local rivers and streams in my community in Port Alberni. You know, I caught my first trout in Franklin River. I hooked into my first wild steelhead in China Creek. I caught my first steelhead in Stamp River. I hiked up and down those rivers so many times. And I'll tell you, there's no feeling like swimming in a river. I used to swim in the Stamp River below Stamp Falls, and having 30-pound Chinook salmon swimming, brushing up against you when you're treading water. There's no way to feel more connected to nature than that. And when I got older and started working in high tech, I went down in the States, and my daughter was born down there. And I came back to Canada when she was born. And I realized that I had this really strong connection to rivers. When the Liberal government was implementing this basically gold rush on our rivers with the run-of-river call that they were doing. And it connected to me, and this is how I really got going in politics, because I was thinking about all of those rivers. And if you ever saw that map where they staked out all of these rivers to private companies to basically dam up and divert, if you ever saw that and see basically how the commodification of our natural resources was happening, it moved me. And I got involved. I started working with the Wilderness Committee and started working with scientists and experts, and got people organized to participate in the environmental assessment processes on these projects. And it was a very rewarding experience, and I learned two things from that. I learned that, one, I can make a difference, and I learned, two, that I can empower others to make a difference. And that has been what has been guiding me in politics ever since. And as a city councillor in Port Moody, I've really been trying to get people involved and empowering people, and I'll elaborate more on that as we go. But it's been an amazing experience as a councillor, and I look forward to the opportunity to do this at a provincial level. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Don Barthel. I'm running for the BC Greens in Port Moody-Coquitlam. I've been active on the Kinder Morgan file for a number of years now, protesting the expansion of their terminal and the accompanying twinning of the pipeline. Politically, I was, you know, through my youth, I was all over the map, conservative fiscally, socially, social conscience, but really focused my mind was a hike that I did to a place called Wedgemont Lake, north of Whistler in the early 2000s. My friends and I, we went for this hike, and I had done this before with my mother when I was small. And I took my mother's 103 hikes book, 103 hikes in southwestern BC, along for the hike because it described the route. And we get up to the lake, and we're looking at the lake, and we're looking at the glacier. And then I look at the picture in the book. Now, mind you, this is about 2003. I look at the picture in the book, and you look at the vista in front of you, and they were two different things. Absolutely two different things. The glacier was half the size. I couldn't believe the difference the picture was taking, you know, 1980 or late 70s, whatever, in this third edition of this book. And at that point, I realized there was something wrong. And that's when I got started as a volunteer with the Green Party, helping other candidates get elected. And it really, you know, there's a lot of issues that I have, society issues for my children, like that, but that really struck me as the one that really matters. Because if there's something wrong with the earth, then you know, economy doesn't matter, livelihood doesn't matter. And so I I got involved with the Kinder Morgan file, and in Port Moody is at the head of at the head of Burrard Inlet, right around the corner from the Kinder Morgan terminal. And I feel like I need to do something to help with the climate change, help with the orcas that are threatened, help with the threat of spill from this terminal and how it would affect us here on the west coast. And so that is why I'm running, and that's why I wish to represent the people of Port Moody-Coquitlam.
I'm Selena Robinson. I'm the BC NDP candidate for Coquitlam-Maillardville. I'm trained as a family therapist. Been a family therapist for over 20 years. I've worked in the private sector, the public sector, and most in the nonprofit sector for Share Family Community Services. And I got involved in politics because of the homelessness issue that continues, as we've just learned, continues to grow. But I got my start back in 2007 when the cold wet weather MAP program was first being proposed, and people in my neighborhood of Ranch Park were outraged that those people would be coming to our neighborhood on the coldest nights of the year. And I decided I needed to get involved and let the organizers know and let the City Council of the day know that I would support the church having cold wet weather mats available. And after that, I was asked if I would consider running for council, and I thought, no, I have a very nice job working for Share. Finn Donnelly, some of you will know who he is, was on council at the time, and he said, no, Selena, you really do need to run for council. And Finn is a very persuasive man, as some of you know, and lo and behold, I was running for council. And what I did when I decided to run for council in 2008 was I gathered around some friends of mine and I said, okay, so help me figure out what my platform is. We don't run as a party, we run as independents. And so they asked me lots of questions over an afternoon in my garden and said, like, really pushed me about what was important and what did I want to do and what was meaningful to me, how could I make a difference? And one of the things that came to mind that I wanted to do was I wanted to ban the use of cosmetic pesticides. They were harmful to people, they were harmful to pets, and they were definitely harmful to the environment, and they serve no value when it's for cosmetic purposes. For sure they serve no value. Like I couldn't even legitimately figure out why you would want a green lawn. We grow moss beautifully here, and it's green and it's soft. So that was a big part of my platform, and what surprised me when I got elected was when I brought it up to council very innocuously, and lo and behold, they weren't even interested in a community conversation about it. I got shut down. Well, that just made me dig in my heels even more and push back really hard, and I was really pleased after 2011 we were actually able to ban the use of cosmetic pesticides in Coquitlam. But I was also very involved in the Coquitlam River Watershed Roundtable, and it is one of the proudest accomplishments that I have had when I was on council, making sure that council stayed focused, because there were times, let me tell you, when they wanted to yank the funding, but I was able to convince them to stick with it, There's good work happening here. And as the MLA for Coquitlam-Maillardville up until yesterday, I was able to talk to other councils about the success that we've had here with it and trying to spread the word about people coming together from all sides in order to protect our watersheds around the province. You'll be hearing more from me soon. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Nicholas Burling, Green Party candidate in Coquitlam-Maillardville. I got my start in politics quite recently. I was working with the Vancouver Pride Society as an advocate for LGBTQ2+ people. And I've been traveling around BC as part of our outreach committee, getting to know what's important to the people of British Columbia, what I can do to help them, and just exploring the natural beauty of the province that we live in. And from there, I received a phone call from Andrew Weaver, who thought that my passion for diversity and inclusion was something that would fit well with the BC Green Party. And he invited me to run as a candidate. And after some deliberation, I decided that was a good thing to do, and that was a way that I could bring my message to a larger audience. And I spent a lot of my youth traveling around the province, going to the Rockies, going canoe camping, spending a lot of time around nature and around water, and just learning how important that is to people in BC and how much we need to do to continue protecting our environment. we're not doing a good job right now. We have the resources in place to do a better job, and I want to see us take advantage of those resources and protect our environment better.
Hello everyone, I am Jody Wickens and I am proud to be the BC NDP candidate for Coquitlam-Burke Mountain. Over the last year I've had the absolute privilege of representing Coquitlam-Burke Mountain in the BC legislature. I've lived in Coquitlam for 12 years with my husband, and we raised both of our children here. I got involved in politics. Before I was involved in politics, I was the executive director for a charity, and I was also an ABA therapist in many families' homes throughout the Tri-Cities, and I became a parent advocate in our public education system. And what I found was that there were a lot of families and individuals being ignored by this government and just left behind. I really believe that this isn't as good as it gets. I think that we can do so much better for the people and for our communities. And I think that we can build a better BC, and I think that we can do that with a leader like John Horgan. Over this campaign, we are going to be outlining 3 commitments to the people in our communities. We are going to make life more affordable. We are going to provide the services for you when you need them. And we are going to create good, sustainable jobs with a strong climate action plan. And I'm proud of the plan that we are going to put forward over the next 27 days. Today's debate is on an important issue, our water. And I think that it's important to engage the people in our community about those essential systems. What I have found, however, when I have been going around into the community, is that people are struggling. They're struggling to make ends meet. They're struggling to find time with their families. And I think the job of government is to make life easier for people and to work on things in our environment to make sure that we have a world for our children and our grandchildren. And I think all of us agree on that. The BC Liberals would have us believe that we have to choose between protecting our environment and a growing economy. And I fundamentally disagree with that. So over the last year, I've worked really hard to engage with the stakeholders in this community, in the Coquitlam River watershed, with people that work in our hatcheries. I'm thankful for the countless volunteers that we have working on this vital initiative. And as an MLA, I will stand up for our community, and I'll make sure that the Coquitlam River watershed has the resources and the support it needs to be successful. So thank you for having me here today.
All right, so my name's Ian Suter, again, running with the Greens for Coquitlam-Burke Mountain. I'm really excited to see so many people in the audience who take an interest in water, and I'm really proud of all of our candidates who showed up today who also think water is really important. I don't know how anyone could overlook this as not the most important issue, perhaps, that faces all of us. As Canadians, we have such luck to be in a country that has 70% of the world's drinkable water. I've lived in many countries where water is not very available. If you leave a tap running for while you're out of the house, or if you take more than a 5-minute shower, that's it. And somehow we have allowed our province to get to a point where it seems to be commodified, as I've heard earlier, that it's not being treated as something that is part of the land, something that is a collective resource. This is something we all need to survive, not something that just needs to be used to pump liquefied natural gas out of the land. Especially here in Coquitlam, it's where the salmon is as sacred as it is to the traditional owners of our land here. We can't do that without the water. This is so important, so important. So about myself, I've been involved in politics for a couple of years now. I never thought I would. Frankly, I'd rather be able to vote for someone who I felt was going to take care of things and not have to meddle in it myself. But until this point, I haven't been led to feel that way. So I decided to get engaged. I work with young people locally I'm the vice president of the Tri-Cities Road Rap Club. We just had a really successful youth summit put on by the Port Moody Rotary Club that got together youth from the Tri-Cities in high school to talk about to grow leadership within our community. And I was really impressed to see every single young person thinks that the environment, water, agriculture, and sustainability is fundamental to what we need to survive and for our future. And I would really like to see that represented in our government that comes out of this as well. So I also am part of the Global Green movement. I just got back from England where we had our Global Greens Congress. So while the provincial elections are important, this is part of a small part of a much bigger movement to protect our planet. And I'm really proud to be able to represent both my party and young people from across the country and across the world to help spur young people to get more engaged in this. I don't think it's spoken about often enough. Only half of our province comes out to vote. We need more action from that. We need politicians who are going to incentivize us to go out there to inspire us. And I really hope that this election reflects that.
Hi, my name is Mike Farnworth. I'm running for re-election as the NDP MLA in Port Coquitlam. I've served 5 terms. I've called Port Coquitlam home for almost 50 years. We moved there in 1969 when I was 9 years old. I got into politics when I was 24 because of the Coquitlam River. As a kid, me and my brothers and my sister, we'd go down to the old fire hall in downtown Port Coquitlam, and we'd inner tube. Every Labor Day, my brothers and I used to have this tradition. We'd take our dog, we'd go down there, we'd get inner tube, we'd have our masks and flippers on, and we'd go all the way down the river from uptown Poco all the way down to at that time, the old Colony Farm Bridge that was on the river. I hiked that river, I swam in that river, I know that river, I know its creeks and its tributaries. And so in 1983, when the Social Credit government of the day decided to close down Colony Farm, which was just a majestic place, that got me angry. And I talked with my friends, and we all thought that was wrong. And I went and spoke to a fellow named Ron Freeman, who was a city clerk in Port Coquitlam. And I said, I don't like this. I want to run for council. And if he'd have laughed at me or said, you're too young, I'd have turned around and run out that door and never done anything. But he didn't. He encouraged me. And so I ran for council, and I got elected. And I still have my brochure from that time. And there's 3 things on it that are particularly pertinent to tonight's debate forum discussion. One was protect the Coquitlam River. The other was make a provincial park out of Burke Mountain. And the other was to save Colony Farm, protect Colony Farm. That's what got me into politics. That's what drove me for each term that I sought re-election. And one of the proudest moments I can tell you as an MLA was in our first term, when we protected not only Colony Farm, but the watershed, or the waterfront lands, Douglas Island and the mouth of Coquitlam River, for salmon habitat. And the other issue that I'm particularly proud of was getting the first stream flow agreement on the Coquitlam River. So the river wasn't just a bathtub when I first went for a swim in it when I was 9 years old, but it had water, came over the dam, the right temperature for the salmon. So that's my history with the river. That's what drives me. That's what I'm running, because I know the power of a government to do good when you've got good people wanting to make good change.
Hello, I am Jason Hanley, and I am your Port Coquitlam Green Party candidate. I'm relatively new to the whole candidate thing, but I've actually been involved with politics and advocacy for quite a long time. Just sort of a brief introduction. I have a computer science degree and a business degree. And I've traditionally done sort of the strategy and behind the scenes type things, helping out candidates, helping out parties. I've been working with the Green Party for a good amount of time, and I actually helped with the last election when my wife and I were living in Victoria. So I have quite a lot of experience with the issues. So when I was asked if I could run as a candidate this time, I kind of thought about it, and I of course had to ask my wife, who's here tonight supporting me, thank you. And we talked about it, and we said, you know what, yeah, I think this is a good time to run for the Green Party and to stand up for things that I've believed in a long time and I want to see done better. As a lot of other people have said here, honestly, I feel like this election is a turning point provincially for BC. I think the Liberal Party is going to get absolutely decimated. I mean, look, they're not I think the only real choice this election is going to be between the BC Greens and the BC NDP. We both have some good ideas. I tend to think the BC Green ideas are a little bit better. That's why I'm running as a candidate for that party. And yeah, I think we're going to do really well. So thank you.
Well, thank you to all the candidates for stepping up to run in this election. It's not an easy job, that's for sure. It eats your entire life during the campaign period, and we appreciate that you've gone to bat for your communities the way you have, so thank you very much. We're going to proceed now with the questions, and our first one will be for one representative from each party. The inclusion of environmental flow needs in the Water Sustainability Act is a significant step forward in the management of our water resources in British Columbia. The current environmental flow needs policy is not sufficient to ensure the protection of BC's aquatic ecosystems. Ensuring ecosystems have natural flow regimes is essential to sustaining the health of aquatic ecosystems and the fisheries dependent on them. If elected, would your party commit to environmental flow need regulations, including rules, procedures, and standards for how to manage them, as opposed to the non-binding nature of the current policy, which only provides guidelines? Start with them.
Did you want to start with the Greens or the...
Which party
Yeah,
first?
sure. You know what, let's start at the other end of the table.
Yeah. I think we agreed that I would maybe take this question. I know when we were discussing it, I said, can we just say yes? But I guess I figured we should maybe follow up with a little more than that. So, first of all, yes, absolutely. Second of all, I think that it'd be a good idea to establish some provincial regulations and enforceable standards. So right now, a lot of this is non-binding, which to me, having regulations like that are non-binding, they're just suggestions. Do you think corporations are going to take advantage of that? Yeah, probably. So we need to make these regulations clear so they can be applied more uniformly at the municipal level. I know an example of this environmental flow needs is actually the Maple Creek issue that came up and diverting that creek. I know that was in the news and that was a very big issue. Now, as far as I understand, it is not currently approved, which is great, but I know that it is just the municipality that is dealing with it, and there don't appear to be any provincial standards that we can use to enforce this type of thing. I know another big issue is about groundwater extraction, and I think that some additional regulations should be applied in that regard, because that, surprisingly, is something that actually affects water flow quite a lot too. If you extract too much of the groundwater, you start getting water flowing the wrong way, and that can lead to destruction of habitat and loss of fisheries. So yeah, I think that about covers it. Absolutely, yes.
And I've been asked to answer on behalf of the BC NDP, but I think it's important first that we set the stage about how we've gotten to this awful place. That 16 years of Christy Clark and the BC Liberals really not paying attention at all to the environment. They have decimated whatever good there had been has been gone. They have spent 16 years eroding whatever good legislation we had, whatever rules we had in place, whatever requirements that were in place to protect our land, our sea, and our air. They have decimated. So I think we need to recognize that. And where the hell are they?
Yeah.
Why aren't they here? I'm sorry. I'm outraged. I think what John Horgan and the BC NDP are prepared to do is to take a look at everything that has gone wrong over the last 16 years. And it's going to be quite the challenge to review all the different legislation as well as the regulations that they have messed with and go back and clean it up. And we're committed to doing that. We're committed to going through everything and fixing as much as we can. They've had 16 years to destroy good work, and that's going to be quite a challenge. But John Horgan and the BC NDP are prepared to do what we need to do.
Thank you. On to question 2 for candidates of Coquitlam-Maillardville. The Site C hydroelectric dam on the Peace River is BC's largest ever public infrastructure project. As you will know, the independent review of this project that would ordinarily be required by BC law did not happen, and other renewables with lower environmental and social costs are now off the table. The Site C earth-filled dam project is now underway. It is scheduled to be completed over the next 7 years at an estimated cost of $9 billion, all of which will need to be borrowed, and it will take 70 years to pay off. BC Hydro has told us that the power to be produced by Site C is not needed now and will not be needed for another 20 to 40 years, and that the project will lose $800 million in its first 4 years of operation because BC Hydro will have to sell Site C's power for much less than it costs to produce. Given these facts, what would you do about the Site C project if your party forms the next government?
I think that the BC Green Party and Andrew Weaver have been very clear on this. Site C is simply not needed. So the BC Green Party would put an end to Site C. So far, there has been a complete disregard for First Nations people. They have not been included in the discussions and to any meaningful degree, that is. And Site C is not giving any full-time permanent jobs going forward. So there's really no benefit to British Columbians. As was mentioned, it's not providing power that we need. It's fueling the LNG industry that's dead. And there's simply no need for Site C going forward. We can invest in renewable energy that works for British Columbians. We can invest in renewable energy going forward that will provide British Columbians with jobs, and that is what the BC Green Party and Andrew Weaver are doing, and that's what I support.
Well, John Horgan and the BC NDP have been arguing long and hard against Site C, making it really clear for all the reasons that I think Laura did a fabulous job of outlining. But the reality is we have the BCUC, right? It's an independent utilities commission, and it was designed to protect the ratepayers from political interference. And Christy Clark and her BC Liberals have completely done away with the role that this independent body has had in order to protect us from politicians. Not that you all need to be protected from politicians, but I think you know what I'm saying. But the risk, because this is the actual risk, Christy Clark has a pet project. I secretly think she just wants it named the Christy Clark Dam, actually. But it's going to cost us billions. We don't need the energy. And it's good to have an independent commission. Harry Swain, who was in charge of that commission, has come out publicly and said, bad idea. We still need to have a BCUC that can operate and make sure that whatever decisions are made by whatever political party are properly supported. Whether the decision is a good one, here's the evidence and here's why. The decision is not a good one, here's the evidence and here's why. So that's why the BC NDP and Don Horgan have always been committed to making sure that the BCUC has an opportunity to take a look and make recommendations.
Thank you.
Am I allowed to use this?
Oh, yes. Sorry, I didn't see it.
Oh, no worries.
I couldn't see it.
Yeah,
I just wanted to clarify whether the question was answered. It kind of sounded like we're going to see. I think that the BC Green Party is really the only party that has said we are going to absolutely stop this. And I'm not sure if they get a chance to respond to this, but I guess I want to know, will the NDP commit to stopping it?
Right, well, do I have to use my one of 2 times? I only get 2.
I think you need to respond to this, so I'm going to say no, you don't need to do this.
Okay. So our commitment is to send it to the BCUC for review, an independent review.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to question 3 for candidates of Port Moody-Coquitlam. We know that the construction of the Kinder Morgan pipeline will have serious impacts on our waterways, our ocean, and our beloved coast. I am sure you are aware that the residents of Port Moody-Coquitlam are concerned about this, what this pipeline will mean in our communities. What is your position on Kinder Morgan, and what have you done over the past few years to protect our waters from this and other threats? What specific actions will you take if elected to defend our coast from the threat posed by the Kinder Morgan pipeline?
Hello. So the position of the Green Party is very clear on this. The Green Party would not allow a twinning of the pipeline. The Green Party would not allow exports from the existing pipeline. But, however, we would allow the existing pipeline to maintain its original purpose, and that purpose is to supply oil to the West Coast, to our one remaining refinery here. As far as what I or we would do to protect our waters, personally I have participated in numerous actions, including being a kayaktivist at the Break Free protest last May. The party itself is the only party to consistently oppose the expansion right from the onset. Unlike the NDP, there is no faction in the BC Greens that supports Kinder Morgan expansion. We're very clear on that. Our leader, Andrew Weaver, was the only MLA to become a Trans Mountain project intervener when there was that so-called consultation, and he was very clear on his personal position as well as the position of the party. So the answer is very clear, no expansion to the Kinder Morgan pipeline.
Thank you.
So in terms of what I've done as a city councillor, early on in my first term, I introduced a motion at council for our city to officially oppose any increase in tanker traffic or any pipelines that would result in an increase in tanker traffic. That motion did pass, and our city officially took a position to oppose that. And we not only did that, but we actively invested in participating in the NEB process, as much of a sham as it was. We tried to articulate the arguments for why this was not the right thing to do. Also, the NEB process, one of the things that frustrated me so much about that is that regular citizens couldn't participate in it. And what kind of a public process do you have that you can't even be part of it? So one of the things I did was to organize a town hall through the city in Port Moody, which was also supported by our council. It's one of the only 2 communities that actually had an open public town hall where Kinder Morgan representatives were there and local stewardship representatives were there. And citizens, residents could come out and ask questions. And those questions were recorded, and those questions were taken and given to the NEB process, and answers were demanded. We also advocated for Port Moody, or somewhere in the Tri-Cities, to participate in the federal ministerial panel discussion. Our community was left out of that decision. That was where the final decision was going to be made. We pushed for that. I've also, through UBCM, I was elected as Vancouver Metro Area Representative 1 year, and I pushed, I worked with, this is what I was talking about earlier, working and empowering people and organizations. I worked with the BCA on advocating for funding and a framework for oil wildlife response. We took that to UBCM, and it passed through UBCM. It was endorsed by the organization. I also, on the Environment Committee on UBCM, pushed the government as much as I could in trying to get a clear answer in terms of what exactly was world-class spill response. We actually had our staff go and research what Washington was doing, what Alaska was doing. We met with the minister. She gave vague answers. We didn't really get anywhere, as was the case in many opportunities to talk to the environment minister. But in terms of what we would do, in my 30 seconds left, I've spoken to leading lawyers in this, and we need to work with First Nations. We need to work with the federal government on this. BC's jurisdiction on this is around health and safety, and also around clean drinking water, and we have a permitting process that we can look into there and see if there's something we can do. Thank you.
We have two rebuttals.
I just want to make this short and sweet. I heard a lot of words from the NDP candidate. I did not hear a clear answer. And I would like to point out that the BC Green Party is committed to stopping any further investment in fossil fuel infrastructure. There's no need for further investment. We need to work on renewable energy.
This decided because we're really on track for time. I'm going to give everybody 1 free rebuttal.
Oh, okay. Well, you're not hearing a clear answer. Well, I said we're going to work with First Nations and we're going to work with the federal government. I also think we do need to be investing in green energy, and I'm going to be holding a dialogue in Port Moody tomorrow night on sustainable economy. We're going to have 2 speakers come out. One has worked in the sustainable energy field for a long time, and somebody from the Pembina Institute, and the program director from SFU Entrepreneurial Program. So come on out and hear about what the future of BC can be about.
Thank you. We'll move on to question 4. This is for candidates of Coquitlam-Burke Mountain. Part of the implementation of the Water Sustainability Act is to ensure there is sufficient funding for engaging stakeholders, rights holders, and the public to form new partnerships to improve water stewardship and water governance in British Columbia. In a watershed like that of the Coquitlam River, there are diverse stakeholders, governing bodies, and water users with different needs. A balance in natural resource development and land use is required to ensure a sustainable and healthy watershed. These stakeholders and users are currently engaged in a partnership approach to watershed governance through the form of the Coquitlam River Watershed Roundtable, from which the community-based Lower Coquitlam River Watershed Plan was created in recent years. The Roundtable is a model of successful partnership-based watershed governance in BC, but requires adequate and reliable resources to implement its watershed plan and to maintain the critical partnerships. Do you support the Water Sustainability Act and the local governance provision? If you were elected, what funding mechanisms would you implement to support collaborative organizations engaged in watershed governance, and how might you involve collaborative groups to deliver the goals of the Water Sustainability Act and support them?
Who goes first? We absolutely do support the Water Sustainability Act, and we support the recommendations that have been put forward by the Coquitlam Watershed Roundtable. And I just have to say that the work that's done by this group is amazing. And I know that my colleague Selena Robinson participated on the roundtable. She's talked about that in her advocacy work at the caucus table and with her local government file, and we have all been very supportive of the Coquitlam Watershed Roundtable. We also, I think, as elected officials, have a responsibility to listen to the experts in our community. And we have experts in our community in regards to what is happening in our watershed and what needs to happen in the future. And so I have had the privilege of talking to those experts, talking with our First Nation, the Coquitlam First Nation, talking with the people that work at our hatcheries, and listening to the recommendations that they made in the report. We support that. We believe that there are excellent recommendations. As far as funding mechanisms go, we have been incredibly clear that the pricing scheme that the BC Liberals have put forward is not working. We would advocate to ensure that that pricing is increased so that we could invest in environmental programs and that we can do the work that needs to be done. We've also laid out a fairly comprehensive climate action plan and look at carbon pricing so that we can use that money to go back into environmental programs.
Well, as is often the case, as I find, as the more I delve into politics, we've got a lot of good regulations, those that haven't been totally gutted by our current or past governments, that really say that we've got the regulation there, and now we need to enforce these things. So that does require investment of funds. Where can we get these funds? I think if we find when Greens take power and we totally boot out the fossil fuel industry, there's going to be a lot of leftover money here. Wouldn't it be great to invest it in our resources for future generations like this? We totally support anything from our communities that are collective information like this. There are experts out there already working really hard and who know what we need for our waterways here. And I would, along with all my Green candidate team members and everyone else who gets elected in, I would be looking to collaborate with other communities to help reduce the costs of these things so that we can, it's not just Coquitlam where this is an issue. There are salmon are having the water flow issues all over, and we desperately need to be really ramping up our attention to this issue. And yeah, so there's collaborative efforts from across from different parties and different ridings, as well as municipalities, as well as looking to our federal government to help reinstate regulations that were previously cut out by our good friend Mr. Harper. And there's more than just the provincial scope to help address this issue, but definitely if all the great ideas are out there, we are here to make sure that they are implemented in an effective and timely manner to sustain our water and our future generations.
I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to go to some of the questions from the crowd. The Lower Mainland is important salmon habitat for both spawning salmon and juveniles who overwinter in the sloughs and side channels of the Fraser River before heading out to the ocean. The Fraser River is also highly diked, with over 600 kilometers of dikes and related infrastructure that impact tributaries and small waterways that flow into the Fraser main stem. Over 1,400 kilometers of these waterways are impacted by pumps and floodgates, which essentially stop the flow of water and the ability from migratory fish to access rearing habitats. In addition, as representatives of communities with waterways affected by dike infrastructure, how will you support your municipality in upgrading pump stations and floodgates to be fish friendly?
There are a number of ways in which the province can assist local government in dike upgrades and making pumping stations and flow stations more fish friendly. One of the key ways, for example, is through the infrastructure program, the P3 partnership, which is not public-private partnership, but between the federal government, the provincial government, and local government on a one-third cost sharing on infrastructure upgrading. This is exactly the type of initiative that needs to be included in those monies. And what it requires is a government that's committed to doing that. A BC NDP government absolutely would be committed to doing that. It also means working with local government, that when dikes are going to be upgraded, that you've also taken the opportunity to identify potentially sensitive habitat that can be restored. Because many of our dikes, over time, or were built a long time ago, and when they're being upgraded, there may be opportunities to do some realignments that protect sensitive habitat. For example, in the city of Port Coquitlam, if you go along the Poco Traveling Trail along the Pitt River, you'll see where the dike was pulled back to create approximately 20 acres of marshland, which is new and provides vital fish habitat. Likewise, working with our regional district, for example, down at Calling Farm, there was improvements made in terms of some of the streams that flow and the creation of fish channels within the regional park that, again, are improving fish habitat. Finally, the province also has the ability, by making sure that we have the proper staff, the proper regulations, and the resources to enforce, which are missing right now. Again, that's something a government that a BC NDP government would ensure that's in place. Thirdly, we have the opportunity through BC Hydro to ensure that our hydro resources are being developed in a more fish-friendly way. I see I've only got a minute. I could go on for hours on this. But for example, take the Coquitlam River Dam. As I said earlier, when I was a kid, the water was like bath temperature. There were about 300 coho a year. It was all that was left of the run, and not much more in the way of chum. Once you had a stream flow agreement in place that allowed a constant flow of water all through the year, but particularly in the summer months, with the right temperature to protect fish, we've seen a significant increase not only in the returns of coho and chum to the river, but the reintroduction of other species. The Chinook, which was extinct since 48, has been reintroduced. Pink salmon are now starting to come back. If we could get a fish ladder on the Coquitlam River, we could actually start getting the landlocked sockeye back in the river the way they're supposed to be. So there's a lot the province could be doing. It just requires a government committed to doing it.
Yeah, so this one was a very interesting one for me, just being a technologist and also living kind of a short walk from the High Creek Recreation Center and High Creek. Last season, my wife and I, we really enjoy walking on the trail up there, and you're walking during salmon season and listening to all the salmon flapping and trying to make their way up the river, and it was just a really cool thing to experience, something I think that families enjoy. There's a little platform where there's a waterfall there, and groups of people would get together and like cheer the salmon on as they're trying to get up the waterfall. So it's kind of like a community event almost. So yeah, it's near and dear to me. I think that I have similar ideas that I came up with sort of during my research. Number one, of course, is to work to develop province-wide standards for pump stations and floodgates to make sure that they're fish-friendly. And obviously, there hasn't been enough being done with that. The second is to provide specific funding for this to municipalities. The province can help with the funding. So for the municipalities that have infrastructure that needs upgrading. And number three, provide some resources for the municipalities to help them choose the right technology and the right vendor, and perhaps even get together and pool their resources to get better deals on the technology that's out there. And I think the province can sort of help with the coordination between municipalities. I think they have a real opportunity to do that. So yeah, like I said, this is something very near and dear to me, and I think that it just requires some serious leadership at the provincial level. Thank you.
Thank you. So our first question from the crowd: what would you change to ensure resources are available in the province, money, equipment, trained professionals, for the rehabilitation of oiled wildlife in the event of an oil spill?
Who's answering?
Just one from each party.
You're missing the other two questions.
They're coming. Okay, sure. What would you change to ensure resources are available in the province, like money, equipment, and trained professionals, for the rehabilitation of oiled wildlife in the event of an oil spill?
I can answer.
Well, it's interesting you ask, especially since our current government keeps touting its world-class oil spill response. To my knowledge, there is still no technology that can take oil out of water. So the very first thing would be to make sure that we're making sure that there's either nothing flowing through the pipelines anymore, or making sure that the pipelines are removed, something to get us off of this so that we don't have the problem in the first place. For the existing infrastructure that we have, there's a very clear lack of funding and leadership in the environmental department to make sure that in the event there is something that happens, that we get there in a timely manner. More often than not, these spills are found hours, days even after the initial leak happens, so there needs to be a lot more enforcement for the regulations that we have. If we need to create new regulations to keep these corporations in check, to make sure that they're actually doing a good job with their dirty work, we need to make sure that those regulations have systems in place that are properly funded so that we can enforce them. So everything within our power, we have no right at this point to be allowing spills to be affecting our ecosystems, especially a place as diverse and sensitive as Coquitlam and Port Moody. We don't have time to allow for one more spill here. It just can't happen.
So as I said earlier, we pushed this up to UBCM and had it endorsed by all of the municipalities in the province. I don't know if people realize like how underfunded and under-resourced these organizations are that do oiled wildlife cleanup. It's really embarrassing when you, I mean, and there's somebody here, Jane, who's worked in this area and volunteered. Some spills are not even classified as spills under the current classification. They get no resources from the government. It's pretty much just donations from people and companies. So, you know, we need to take this issue seriously, and it does come back to the spill response framework and the funding. And again, looking at what other jurisdictions are doing, they have funding in place to handle this. The fact that we don't is just, to me, insane, and that's why I tried to help this initiative. And so the solution again is working with those organizations that are doing amazing work in this. They're dedicating so much time and effort to help in these situations. We need to be able to assist them so that when there is a spill, they can call somebody and get government to come out and assist in a timely manner. We don't have this in BC right now. We are woefully underprepared for a big spill, and we're also underprepared for a small spill. We just don't have anything in place. And it's not just oil spills, it can be canola oil. I mean, we don't have anything. So we need to solve this problem.
Thank you. Now I'm going to move on to question 6 for one representative from each party. This winter, we experienced an immense amount of rainfall and snow in urban areas. When stormwater flows through our cities, pollutants and litter are conveyed directly into the nearest water body via stormwater drains. Contaminated stormwater runoff is one of the greatest contributors to poor water quality in urban areas. Please describe the actions that you will take to ensure the impacts of urban runoff are reduced.
Great question. 5 parts. Gas-powered cars currently use engine oil and lubricants, and those are spilled or dripped or come out as pollutants in the air, and the rain washes those pollutants out of the air and it becomes polluted runoff. As we transition away from gas-powered cars to electric cars, that problem will be significantly reduced. I would support increased incentives for electric cars so that we could speed our transition away from those gas-powered cars, and that would lessen the automobile impact in the runoff. Equally important is the maintenance standards for trucks. I don't see a transition away from fossil fuels for large vehicles, but I do see opportunity for more fuel-efficient trucks and for better maintenance standards. And that would support the runoff issue as well. Thirdly, currently cities in Metro Vancouver are working to separate storm drain flow from sewage flow as part of the current province of BC's environmental goal to eliminate sewage overflows during large rain events. I would work with municipalities and civil engineers to determine that if that second piping system that they are transitioning towards ought to be treated just like sewage is. Might be a different kind of treatment. I don't know, but I would consult with the experts on that. Fourthly, fertilizers and pesticides. Improper fertilization application on farms and golf courses and parks results in nitrates and phosphates in our runoff, and those pollutants are harmful to aquatic species. So I would support better regulation in the application of fertilizers and pesticides. Lastly, soil erosion in poorly maintained construction sites and other sites leads to sediment in the runoff. And that sediment makes the water cloudy and negatively affects the water quality. So I would work to review regulations for construction sites to see if there's an opportunity to reduce the amount of sediment in the runoff.
It's hard to get into specifics around what exactly the NDP would do because our platform's coming out tomorrow. So what I can talk about is what I've done. And as chair of the Environmental Protection Committee in Port Moody, we were looking into the appropriate amount of impervious surfaces in new developments and through our zoning bylaw update. And that's something we're investigating. There's two ways that you can prevent soil erosion. One is don't cut down the forest, and the other is make sure that if there is development upstream, that there's a sufficient mechanism to filter the water through stormwater management practices or permeable surfaces in the development. And so the other thing that I've done is bring forward the Right to a Healthy Environment initiative to the City of Port Moody, and our community did endorse that as well, and we're putting into practice those initiatives. And you know, there's 6 clauses to that. One is a right to clean drinking water, and the other another one that's relevant is a right to participate in decision making. And so I've stated as a councillor that I brought this forward, I support this, and I, as a councillor, would like to see the provincial government adopt this at the provincial level as well. I don't know where the party stands on that at this moment, but that's definitely advocacy that I've done in the past. And we're challenged with this government because it's basically a government that encourages self-regulation. You know, during that Mount Poly disaster, there's basically, I think, 1 mining inspector in the whole province. I mean, does anybody know how many forest rangers there are in the province? 6. Yeah, 6 or 7, I think.
How about railway inspectors?
What's that?
I said, how about railway inspectors as well?
Well, that's a whole other thing. Railways are federal jurisdiction. They can do whatever they want on their land that affects streams as well. For example, in Port Moody, we have a pesticide, cosmetic pesticide bylaw. We're not allowed to apply pesticides on our properties, but the railways can spray pesticides all over the place, and they're exempt. So, you know, we have to work with federal government on that. Also, the provincial government has cut scientists and licensed expert positions in the last decade by about 25%, and that is not the right direction to go either. So.
I have a question for Mike Farnworth, if you could pass the mic down, please. Mike, why did Horgan announce a $400 grant to renters, and how are we going to pay for it? This throwing money around just to buy votes makes me very angry.
Well, that's got to be from a Liberal in the audience. You know what? More and more people, because of this government, are finding life more and more unaffordable. Under Christy Clark's tenure, hydro rates have increased 87%, while wages have remained stagnant. ICBC premiums, which she said she was going to wrestle to the ground, have gone up. Your MSP premiums have doubled under the tenure of Premier Christy Clark. She allowed a housing market to get out of control so that young people today can't afford to buy a place to live. I today could not afford to buy a house in the community I grew up in. Rents in the Lower Mainland are sky high. It's about priorities. Christy Clark's priorities are her wealthy friends and insiders. Ours are about making life more affordable for everyday British Columbians. We have a homeowner's grant. It's about time we had a renter's grant to help young people, low-income people, middle-income people find a place to live. I'm spending $16 million on self-publicizing ads in the run-up to an election that the Auditor General has said are, are wrong. There's $16 million right there. There's hundreds of millions of dollars that this government likes to spend on its pet projects. It's about priorities. We've got the right priorities, she's got the wrong ones.
All right, so I think that as a young person, low-income renter, I think it's important to underline that the amount that was asked about here is $400. That's barely half of 1 month's rent for me. I would wonder if it's more prudent for a government and as a regulatory body to be solving the crux of the issue. Why is housing as unaffordable as it is? How can we make other parts of life more, if we can't curb the housing market, maybe perhaps we can curb other areas of the market to make the rest of life more affordable.
Thank you. There's a lot more we can do and a lot more we're going to do. And one of the things the government doesn't do is sell 150 acres of Crown land for below assessed value in the middle of a housing boom in British Columbia. Would you sell your house for less than it's worth? No. So why should the government sell our assets off for less than they're worth? The other thing we need to start doing to address supply is look at being creative. More co-ops, more lease land, working with local government to free up land. Local communities often have land and want to build affordable social housing. There's a place in my riding at Flint Manning. When we were government in 2001 and I was Minister for Housing, I approved a social housing project there. Had the support of the city, had the support of the community, and guess what? Christy Clark's government, the Liberals get in power, they pulled it. They pulled the funding for it. 16 years later, it's still a vacant lot. We've got a federal government that says they want to do more with housing. We're a party that's committed to building social housing, affordable housing, looking at creative and alternative ways of doing that by working with government, with communities, with nonprofit housing groups. We've done it before and we'll do it again.
Thank you. Oh, rebuttal. Go ahead.
I would just like to point out a theme that I've been noticing tonight, which is the NDP attacking the Liberal Party rather than discussing what they plan to do to fix our problems. And I would like to point out that the BC Green Party has an excellent platform to address all of these issues, and we're not attacking other parties.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to the next question. With all the development happening in Burke Mountain, this is for Coquitlam-Burke Mountain riding candidates. With all the development happening on Burke Mountain, how do you propose to protect all of the watersheds there? The watershed.
Oh, sure. Well, as mentioned a couple of times already this evening, there are often a lot of regulations around how to protect our watershed. The very first step is to enforce those regulations and make sure that they are consistently enforced, not just a check-in at the beginning, check-in at the end kind of thing, or whatever suits the people, the developers, as is often the case. So one, to make sure that the rules are followed. If we are finding that the current system is allowing for mistreatment of the watershed areas, then we need to bump up those regulations. But I suspect that a lot of that could just be averted by really enforcing what we've got. As I said, we've only got a handful of forest rangers. I'm sure there's even less people actively going out and making sure all the developers are, especially in this development boom that we're in, are make sure that they're doing everything the way that it ought to be, but definitely to keep all the experts in the area and make sure that we have as many eyes on these very delicate areas, especially upriver as those are, to make sure that it's being addressed adequately, definitely.
So the Watershed Action Plan has some strategies and a plan currently right now that's waiting for some funding and waiting for implementation. And so as the MLA, I would support those strategies and I would work with the roundtable to ensure that those things could be implemented, in particular around the development in Burke Mountain. Burke Mountain is a challenge right now. We have seen incredible growth there, and we really haven't had the leadership necessary at the table to ensure alongside with that development that there are the resources and the amenities necessary and support for responsible development to ensure that our watershed is not being harmed. And so I think a BC NDP government, or I know a BC NDP government, myself as an MLA, would advocate every day to ensure that we give municipalities incentives and resources to make sure that when development happens, it's happening in a responsible way, that we're doing so in a way that we're protecting our watersheds, we're doing it so in a way that we have the amenities and resources at the same time of development. And I know that the families up in Burke Mountain are incredibly frustrated. I spent a lot of time up there, and that really is the job of an elected official, is to go into the communities and reach out to the people that you are elected to serve, listen to what they have to say, and then advocate for positive, meaningful change in those communities. And so that's exactly what I would do as an MLA. I've done it already. I would continue to do it. And I'd work with the BC NDP government to ensure that we are safeguarding our precious water systems.
Thank you. So I do have a question for the Green Party representative. That enforcement is important, but it's the local governments that are responsible for enforcement. So I'd like to hear what the Green Party would do to help municipal governments do the enforcement.
Let's give them some funding to make that happen.
What does that cost?
It would be fantastic to, yeah. If they've got the people and they've got the rules, let's give them more opportunities to make those happen, for sure.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to question 7. This may likely be our last question, depending on how quickly we get our answers. In an effort to better understand British Columbia's watersheds, to sustain watershed functioning, to support key river restoration and management projects, to build better watershed resilience to climate change, it is believed that a portion of the budget should include a funding pool that non-government groups, such as local stream keepers and river guardians, could apply for help to fund the river and stream restoration efforts. If elected, will you publicly support and advocate for the creation of a $75 million water and watershed sustainability fund, similar to the Forest Renewal BC, that could be used to fund an array of much-needed watershed and river-related projects?
One of you is supposed to be.
So this is just.
Yep.
Yes.
Like Forest Renewal BC.
Yeah, so like Forest Renewal BC, there are excellent programs, excellent models that we can follow in supporting this endeavor, and I would like to see similar effective approaches to that to address this issue. Yeah, so we're for it by all means. Yes.
In looking at this, it raises a lot of interesting issues, and I think we would be open to looking at something about a water sustainability fund similar to other funds, but I'm not going to put a number on it. I think at the current time, there's a lot of programs in place that are able and are doing or have the potential to do good work if you've got a government that's committed to them. Currently, right now, there are a number of avenues in which you can fund critical programs that stream keepers can take advantage of. For example, making it policy at hydro that streams are a priority, that water flow is a priority, and ensuring that stream keeper groups, for example, in our own area, we've got the High Creek Stream Keepers, Scott Creek Stream Keepers, the government is liaising and working with them and local communities, identifying what are the key projects that need to be done in each area. Locally, for example, in the past I've worked with Maple Creek Stream Keepers, High Creek Stream Keepers to get pumping stations on those particular water courses to ensure that there's water all year round. This comes directly as a result of some of the challenges that have come from development. It's not just a question of saying, let's put some money aside to pot. Let's look at all the impacts that come to bear on our streams in our communities right across the province. In many cases, it's development, and issues such as setbacks are critical. In many cases, it's a lack of knowledge about the hydrology and particular watersheds. And frankly, I would like to see the province do a much more in-depth study of the hydrology of many of our watersheds, in particular our aquifers, because all of those things relate to the amount and the timing and flows in water and how it relates to fish habitat. Who best has local knowledge? Local stream keepers groups. We should be encouraging, as a province, and local government should encourage the formation of stream keeper groups in each community, in each of our streams. It's a great way to get people and our communities involved in what's happening in our environment. It's a great educational resource in our school system. So I'm all for this, but I don't think it's just a question of throwing money and saying put in X number of dollars. I think it's about identifying all of the issues and finding the best way to bring them together and the best way to fund them, because I think you will have a much more effective result at the end of the day. And I think that that is something that we all want.
So I'm going to allow for the rebuttal from Rick Lumac, and then we will go to the closing statements.
I was talking to a very intelligent person recently about the idea of maybe we should have an environmental advocate, or like an ombudsman or something like that. What I'm hearing from the Green Party right now is yes to everything. And I'm just wondering, like, is there any costing out that has been done to the commitments that you're talking about, or have you talked about engaging experts in these decisions, or is it just I'm just hearing a lot of, yeah, we'll do that. So how does that work with the Green Party?
Yeah.
Go to Green Party.
Hi. So what we're talking about here is a $75 million fund. That was the question. In the scheme of things, that $75 million is very, very small compared to a lot of the other commitments that have been made by all three parties in this election. And this is a very important environmental issue, and it's a very easy one to agree to, because the amount is so small and the benefit is so high that the cost to benefit ratio, the cost is very low. So this particular issue isn't in the Green Party platform, but it is what I would consider to be a no-brainer.
I'd also like to add that this is environmental organizations that are putting these on. I think it would be surprising if the Green Party wasn't already on board with the majority of the things brought up at this event, if not all of them. So perhaps when we come to a different sort of debate, we'll have more distinct answers from our counterparts here. But yeah, in an environmental room, I would hope that the Greens were leading and, at the very least, yesing the majority of the great ideas put forward by these well-organized community organizations.
Thank you. Can you pass the mic down to Jason, and we'll start with closing statements at the far end of the table.
So yeah, I think I'll actually kind of follow up on that, on the same note that Ian had, and basically just say that water, the environment, and sustainable development, I mean, that is job number one for the Green Party. In some cases, I feel like the NDP sometimes has to straddle a lot of different conflicting interests. Sometimes I actually wonder if with some of these big projects like Site C and the pipeline, if they might actually prioritize labor interests over the environment. I guess that is sort of a concern that I have personally, and one of the reasons that I choose to support the Green Party over the NDP. So I think that Green Party principles and priorities are just 100% clear, whereas sometimes it's maybe not as clear with the NDP. Thank you.
My name is Mike Farnworth, and I have served our community for 5 terms as MLA. Our party has a record of environmental protection in our community that is second to none. Starting in 1991 under Mike Harcourt, when we set aside Burke Mountain Pinecone Lake as a Class A provincial park. We protected Colony Farm. We protected Douglas Island. We brought in a stream flow agreement on the Coquitlam River. We ensured better setbacks for development on streams in our communities and throughout the whole province. We have a record of which I am very proud of, and my colleagues will go to Victoria and take. We know exactly where we stand on the important issues in the Tri-Cities, and each one of us is running in our own ridings to represent our own communities on these particular issues. It was the Coquitlam River and Colony Farm that got me into politics. It's ensuring that that work continues that keeps me in politics. And at the end of the day, there's no ambiguity about that. We're committed to doing the right thing by the environment in our communities. We have a record that's demonstrated that, and on May 9th, when we are government again, then we will see the opportunity under John Horgan as Premier of what a positive, progressive government can do to ensure that we have a healthy environment for all of British Columbia and the Tri-Cities.
Thank everyone again for coming out about this really important issue. I'm glad there are so many people concerned about our water, and I am really excited to be working with the Green Party these days. I've had difficulty in my own areas getting the work done that I would like to do in the line of politics, but this is where I'm really excited about showing off the horizontal power structure of the Green Party. Where, I mean, just because Andrew Weaver says it's a great idea, and I would assume that as an educated individual that it probably would be, but in the event that the constituents of Coquitlam-Burke Mountain thought that this was not in their best interest, I'm very proud to be able to say that our party puts the onus on the candidates and the MLAs to put their constituents' values before partisan interests or corporate interests or union interests, as often come up with these environmental concerns. So I'm really excited as well to work as the Green to help collaborate between parties that are not always seeing eye to eye, and it's really exciting to be able to show off the more things that we have in common rather than things that we have in, that separate us. Anyway, I'm really hoping that I'll be able to engage more young people as well as everyone else in our community. When half of our province isn't getting out to vote, it seems to me that there is either something disengaging about the political atmosphere that we're in, or that perhaps we're not really providing any opportunities or inspirational work that really gets people out to vote. Again, that's almost half of our province not participating in something really, really important. And as a Green, one of our enshrined values is participatory democracy. So I'm really, really hoping to see that we have a greater turnout in this coming election. And either way, there's a lot of work to be done before an election, after an election, and you can count on your Green Party to be out there after the election, regardless of who gets in, helping collaborate between other organizations, between parties, and making sure that we can really protect our planet, for not just for the next 4 years or the next 2 years, but for the next several generations. As a young person, I can't really stress this enough. This is not just the future for this coming term. This is a much bigger picture. This is the health of our planet we are talking about. And without any kids of my own, I can still see this is a life that I am going to have to be living in when things are either on fire or we've sorted things out now while there's still time to make sure that we have a future for ourselves as we age, and as well for our children and our grandchildren that come ahead of us. So I hope you will consider the Greens for this opportunity.
This is an incredibly important election, and there are so many people in our communities that are counting on us to make change in this election. I was taught my entire life that you stand up for what you believe in, even at times if that means it's really, really difficult. And under this government, people are having an incredibly tough time. Last year, we saw one child die every 3 days in government care. That is shameful. And there is one choice in this election to ensure that Christy Clark and the BC Liberals don't get back into power, and that is John Horgan and the BC NDP. I grew up in a family. My mom was 16 years old when she had me. We had very little money, and what I learned growing up was that when you have to make choices of where you're gonna get the lowest cost food, when your car runs with blue gas out of the back, when you are just struggling to make ends meet, you are not able to make choices that may positively affect the environment. So the BC NDP understands the struggles that people and families are experiencing in British Columbia today. And we have to take a balanced and measured approach on how we're going to address not only environmental issues, but the social issues. Because if we do not provide for the people in British Columbia what they need to get out of the crisis that they are in, they are not going to be able to make the choices to positively affect our environment. I have had a lot of amazing jobs in my life. Being the MLA for Coquitlam-Burke Mountain has been one of the best. I have been the youngest woman in the BC legislature, and I have stood up every single day that I have been there to fight for Coquitlam-Burke Mountain and the constituents there. But my most important job, and the most important job I will ever have, is as a mom. And part of that is making sure that we have a future for our children, a healthy world for them to grow in. I'm committed to that. But I'm also committed to making sure that they have everything else in their lives that they need to be successful. John Horgan is someone that I trust with my children's future. He's competent, he's on our side, and he will work every day to make sure that the interests of everybody in our community are taken care of. We will finally have a government that works for all of us. That's the choice I think that we have in this election, and I think it's the only choice we have to make for a better future for our children and for the most vulnerable in our society.
So what I love about the Green Party is that we're an evidence-based party. We don't claim to be experts. We're all individually experts in different areas, but we're not experts when it comes to everything. And we trust experts. We reach out to experts and we follow their advice. We don't act based on what is going to get us votes. We act based on what is right for British Columbia and for our environment. So when May 9th comes around, I encourage you to vote for change you can count on and to avoid the politics of fear and division. Thank you.
So I'm Selena Robinson, and I'm asking for your vote on May 9th. I've spent my entire career working with a diverse group of people. In the province of British Columbia is a diverse group of people with a diverse landscape. And John Horgan has set about finding candidates, and the party has set about finding candidates who are as diverse as the people and as the landscape of British Columbia. Because we need diversity around the table, around the caucus table, that represents all of you and all of British Columbia. And so I'm very proud of the colleagues that I have running with me in this election. Because the reality is, we have various interest groups, various people with different ideas and different challenges, just as Jody sort of noted. And so we have to work together. And I want to speak a little bit about the Coquitlam River Watershed Roundtable, because I have to say, in all of my experience as a family therapist, I think that was the toughest family therapy that I've ever been through. There were 100 people in the room sometimes with varying competing interests around this watershed. We had the gravel operators and the fishers and the stewards and the municipalities and our First Nation. And everyone was coming in and everyone was demanding that they be heard, that it was their watershed and that their rights trumped everybody else's rights. But we stuck together. We stuck together month after month, week after week, making sure that we heard what everybody's needs were, making sure that we heard what everyone's voices were crying for, what everyone was afraid for. We heard from the gravel operators that they didn't want to put people out of business, they didn't want to put people out of work, that they had a responsibility, that we still were building roads and we needed gravel. But we also needed fish, and we needed clean water. And instead of pointing fingers, which we started at doing, and people running out of rooms screaming at each other, we came to a place where we're actually able to listen to each other and talk about shared values and talk about a shared vision for this watershed. And I am so proud of the work that we did, and I'm so proud of the work. Margaret Birch is here. She staffed it from the beginning. And we worked hard, we stayed in relationship, and we stayed committed to the task. And I'm proud of that work, because now we can actually take care of the river, and that river is no longer on the endangered rivers list because of the work that this group did. That's the kind of leadership John Horgan has, that's the kind of diversity we are committed to, and that's about making sure that everyone's voice can be at the table so that we can build a BC that is better for all of us, not just some of us, but all of us. So I am asking for your vote on May 9th.
Don Barthel. I have the support of the Green Party in Port Moody-Coquitlam. The Green Party is unequivocally against Site C, unequivocally against Kinder Morgan, and we are unequivocally for putting this province back on the right track as far as large projects, renewable energy, and doing what's right.
I've tried to spend some time here tonight talking about the things that I've worked on, because I think a record of your behavior in the past is a good indicator of how you're going to be in the future. I didn't get a chance to talk about a lot of stuff. I didn't get a chance to talk about my opposition to garbage incineration on the Metro Vancouver Committee and the work I did there, and in trying to encourage an alternative to material recovery, which is pulling the recyclables out of the garbage stream rather than burning them. I didn't talk about the work I did as Vice President of the Lower Mainland Local Government Association, trying to advocate for health impact assessments as part of our environmental assessment process. I didn't talk about my trip I took to Shawnigan Lake to talk to the people there about the material that was being shipped from Port Moody and how that was affecting the community there, and that permit has been pulled. I didn't talk about the advocacy I've done in opposing the dredging, dumping of the dredging material in the Burrard Inlet back into the Burrard Inlet rather than properly disposed of. I think we have, I mean, when you look here, you don't see any Liberal candidates, and that's not a coincidence. They haven't been around. They haven't been there on environmental issues. And we have an amazing opportunity in this election to elect a government that cares about the environment and will work and listen to experts and listen to the community, listen to people about these environmental issues that affect them directly. I am asking you not just to vote, but to get involved. Go into wherever riding you're in, go visit the campaign office for the candidate that you support and get involved, because we really can make a difference in this election. We can change things. This is why I'm running. I'm making a lot of personal sacrifices in running, and I have a good job in the high-tech field. I have a great position as city council, but I care about this, and I'm really worried about this Liberal government and where it's going to go in 4 years if we allow them to get elected again. Get out there. We can make a difference. Thank you.
Well, thank you, candidates. Much appreciated for your closing remarks. I would like to say a sincere thank you to Councillor Fred Hulbert from our Coquitlam First Nation for your wonderful welcome early in the evening. Thank you. I'd like to thank all of you people for coming out tonight. It's appreciated that you're here exercising your democratic right. Thank you. Once again, to our candidates, I know there's a lot of stuff going on when you're starting a campaign, and it's not easy to carve out a big chunk of time for this. We are grateful you were here tonight. Thank you. To the organizers of this event, the groups that we spoke to earlier in the evening, thank you for all your work for pulling this together. To Douglas College, thank you for letting us use your space. And to two of the hardest working women I have ever met, Melissa Chowan and Corey Tull, for kind of pulling us all together. Really. Rick's right, we need to get out, we need to vote and get involved. So thank you for coming tonight and have a nice evening.